We're in for a treat, two treats in fact. Neuroscientist and friend Moran Cerf, who will be on next to talk about the neuroscience of the metaverse. And then following Moran's segment, where's Moran? Let's make sure he's actually even here. Oh, there he is, good. Following Moran's segment, we're going to be treated to Verse About the Verse by Marshall Davis Jones. So we're going to hear a little science and a little art, and you're going to see that they both are, Moran and Marshall, both scientists and artists. Moran Cerf.
Thank you. So I'm, I guess, the twin token neuroscientist. Every year, Rob asks me, what do you have to say about this topic? And I'm coming up with kind of what do we know brain-wise on a specific idea. So, Metaverse. You all saw the speaker just two before me, Sam, who spoke over Zoom. And we could really, by the way, tell that it's over Zoom. There was a delay between when he spoke and when the words came out, when the sound came out. There was a kind of 2D version of him that didn't really give us a full experience of his body. In a way, we know, by the way, when we're in the real world and when we're not. In that sense, our brain is really good in picking things up. But even if you weren't sure, because the footage was perfect and you were in VR, there's still a lot of cues that your brain gathers that you're not aware of. Maybe there's a smell that is in the room and odors that penetrate your brain, and they tell you whether the person that you're talking to experiences the same experiences that you go through, and this changes the dynamics. Maybe it's something about the echo from the room that you don't really know how to calculate, but intuitively, your ears say, yeah, we're in the same room because the echo works perfectly. There are a lot of things that go in our mind when we're in the same room versus we're in other environments. And our brain knows how to interpret them. And I want to play a game with you that will allow you to imagine that with me. And the game is we're having a burger together. So imagine for a second you're having a burger. If you're a vegetarian, it can be an impossible burger, or you can imagine eating the burger by hating the experience. Either way, you're having a burger in front of you. And let's talk about what happens right now when you're eating this burger. So I wrote the list of things that I could come up with, but you can all invent new ones. So first, you see the burger in front of you on a dish. So your eyes are engaged in a visual. And maybe you smelled it. So there are odors coming from the burger, and you can get the aroma of the burger. And then you give a command to your arms to reach out to the burger and hold it, and then you have a tactile experience. You actually feel the texture of the burger, and then you get it closer to your mouth. And you have another motor movement that opens the mouth and calculates exactly the distance and the amount of force you have to exert in order to get the bite. And then you touch the burger with your teeth, and you swallow, you chew, sorry. And there's a sensation that comes to your teeth, where you actually feel texture. And then you get a bite, and then it's in your tongue. And now you roll it in your tongue. You're preparing for lunch. You roll it in your tongue, and you actually know exactly where it goes. It doesn't go always the same place. Not every bite goes in the same place in your tongue. Some go in the front, some go in the back, based on how acidic and how salty it is. So your tongue now rolls it, and it starts breaking it with acids already in the mouth, your saliva. And then at some point, after chewing it to a few pieces, you swallow. And there's a tactile experience of swallowing. You actually feel it going through your throat. And after that, the taste comes. So suddenly your mouth is filled with a taste, which is a different sensation that comes to mind. And maybe there's an aftertaste, so your nose experiences the smell from the inside. And all of that was just the part that you're aware of. And then another part starts, where things happen that you're not aware of. There are acids in your stomach that start breaking it down, and muscles that start breaking the mechanics of that. And there's some bacteria that interact with your body and assimilate itself with the burger. Now it's in your body. And then there are nutrients. Your body takes the nutrients from the burger and starts dispersing them in different veins and different mechanics. So the body starts getting all the molecules in the right directions. And then your gut gets involved. And the gut says, okay, we had this bite. We kind of got it. We know what we got from it. Let's signal to the brain back that we're maybe a little bit more satiated right now. So we're ready for the next bite in a different mode. Maybe you're getting full. Maybe the gut says, enough. We don't want any more things. And then maybe there's another system, the reward system, that comes to mind and says, okay, how much do I enjoy this bite? How much do I want the next one? How much do I actually generally want burger in the future? And maybe then you create a memory. You just had experience. It was a really tasty burger, so you get a memory in your brain of this entire experience. And just all of this is the today's experience. But what about tomorrow? Tomorrow someone asks you, what did you do during lunch? And you collect the memory from your brain, you retrieve that, and you have to go through the entire experience, but only in your mind right now, the bites, the swallowing, the taste, and so on. And maybe you tell a story. Oh, it was the best burger ever. So you have to engage a mechanism in the brain that makes up a story from the memory and discusses it and actually describes it. But the point I'm trying to make is what we seemingly call, I had a burger for lunch, brain-wise, is a set of dozens of operations, each coming from a different module, each operating independently. The memory doesn't necessarily know what the gut is doing. The gut doesn't necessarily know what the teeth are doing. All of those things are in the brain being collected. And what's nice about that is that now we can start replacing each and every component with a mechanic that will do it for us outside of the brain, outsource this operation. And when we talk about metaverse, we kind of say, well, you're going to have food in metaverse, so you're going to encounter people. But from the brain's perspective, each experience could be different. And I'll give you a taste of how it looks, pun intended. A colleague of mine, Jan Cornil from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, he tried to play with learning about the brain and seeing what happens if you take out one component from the experience when it comes to the overall experience. So he had subjects, and this is going to be a bit gruesome, but you've seen a knee being operated on, so you're kind of ready for that. He took subject in his study, and he put a little tube in their throat, and he just broke the experience of having food into segments. So in group one, got the food through the tube straight into their stomach, just without swallowing, holding the burger, chewing, or anything. So, from the stomach perspective, everything is the same. Food comes through the throat, and from now on, everything operates the same. Just there was no chewing and swallowing and biting and choosing and holding and so on. Another group does the entire first part. So they chew and they swallow, only the tube then takes it out and it goes out. So nothing gets into the gut. And you can start seeing each group gets a different experience. Some of them get through infusion, just the nutrients. So your body gets everything you would get from the burger, just it doesn't come through your throat through eating. It just comes a different place. And the point is that the brain looks entirely different in each of the experiences. Some people who swallowed but didn't get actually anything else get full. Why? Because it turns out the brain determines if we're full partially by our gut telling us, yeah, we're full, but partially by also we have an anticipation of how many bites we need to get full. And some of us get full just by chewing and swallowing things without actually the things getting to the body. And some people on the other hand got all the burger, it wasn't burger, but all the food through their stomach and didn't feel at all joy from this experience because they didn't get to swallow and chew. And when we think about an experience, we are used to the experience being one solid thing with all the components. But now that we can start breaking them down, we're getting to a world where scientists in what we call the metaverse could start saying, what do we need for a person to feel full? Maybe we don't need any of the kind of chewing, swallowing, choosing. All we need is one machine that's going to give you the infusion of the nutrients, another one that creates a memory. That's all it is. You're going to get the burger, you're going to feel full, and you're going to have a memory of it, without you having to actually swallow and chew, and for us having to make sure that you get the right burger at the right time. And if you think about the world, when this becomes part of the idea, then we can ask the question, what does a person need to survive? Why is it important to them? And start giving just that. So the metaverse of the future, if you want, would be one where we basically distill every experience to the very essence of it and start saying, what is it that you need? How can we give it to you? The point I'm trying to start with, and I'm going to have two more and I'm going to be done, is that up to now, most people don't really think about life like that. We kind of think of like life as a discrete big events, but for neuroscientists, we do think about them as separate. And when we start saying what can we replace, we can actually break down all of them and start thinking of which ones do you want to give a person and what tools you would use for that. And visual is just the very early and the one that we play with the most because it's the easiest to do. It's very easy to create a VR experience. It's much harder to create an experience where you're going to give someone nutrients. But if you want to go all the way to the future, this is where we're headed. Taking what the brain actually experiences and giving it the component. Now to VR. How can I, here it is. To VR. So what we have right now is pretty much something like this. Something that you put on your eyes, and that is what we think of when we think of the metaverse mostly. Something that so this is pretty limited and kind of ancient if you want. Why? Because the brain knows that you're in VR. So no matter how exciting the experience is and how scary the dragon is or how scary is the dinosaurs attacking you, in the back of your mind you know that you can do this and it's over. And by that, I mean that something about the experience is never complete when we know it's in VR. But now I'm going to keep that point on the shelf for a second and tell you why it's still pretty remarkable. What we know from studies of the brain over the last couple of years when VR was part of us is that it does change your brain. When you put the VR goggles and you stand on top of a building and you see the fall coming ahead of you, and you say, okay, I'm going to make this step and fall down, everything in your body screams, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But when you do that, you didn't just play a game where you stepped down, you changed your brain. You changed years and years of evolution that taught you to not step over ledges or walk off planks, and now you just made a small step for men, but a giant leap for mankind because you changed something in a wiring that was there for generations. Here is how it happened backwards. 100,000 years ago, there was a monkey in the savannah that saw a tree with a banana, and it was very eager to get the banana. He was hungry, the gut says so, so he was thinking, okay, I'm going to go get the banana, but then he saw a lion, maybe 200 feet away, between him and the banana. So he put in the open Excel file immediately, like monkeys do, and he made like a little kind of table where he says like, should I should not go to the banana? And on the left he said, monkey speed, lion speed, banana taste, monkey taste. Kind of how hungry does the lion look? How hungry am I? He made all those equations, and in the end, he kind of did really like all the tables correctly with all the numbers, and he came to the conclusion, not a good idea to hit the banana, go back home. This is monkey one. Monkey two sat there and did the same Excel, but did a bit of different calculation, and he maybe miscalculated the speed of a lion versus the speed of a monkey. He didn't make it. So we're the descendant of all the monkeys that did the right Excel files. And at some point, a great feature of the brain is that the brain tries to optimize performance. So after a few generations of monkeys doing the right Excel files, coming up with the same conclusion, one generation said, you know what, we don't need to do the equation entirely from the beginning to the end. We always come up with the same conclusion. How about we optimize that, and we'll just integrate in the brain one kind of quick wiring that gives us the bottom line. We call this the feeling of fear. The feeling of fear is the descendant of many, many generations of monkeys that did Excel calculations, and came up with the same conclusion. And from now on, monkey, 100,000 years later, just looks at the banana, looks at the lion, gets scared, leaves. He doesn't know that his brain actually did all those Excel calculations many, many generations before, and he came up with that. And that's why we are born with a fear of heights. No one teaches us to be afraid. No one says, like, you know, if you do this, you fall, or you just fall from kind of shorter distance, and then you learn that it's not really a good idea. You just learn. In fact, monkeys, day old, when they're shown a picture of a snake, show elevated heart rates, pupil dilate. The monkeys are aware of snakes being risky without being told ever that a snake is risky, without ever seeing a snake before. They're just born with this wired mechanism. Now, some things are new, but the point I'm trying to make on the second point is that VR is overwriting those years of evolution. Because now we're basically giving a monkey an experience where he goes to the tree, and the lion suddenly runs very slowly, and when the lion gets him, he's friendly, and he offers him another banana. And this isn't just giving us kind of a nice, okay, well, it's a nice social experience. It actually is a new brain. So a generation of people who will play those VR experiences that are not really reflecting the real world, if they take the goggles off and they go to the real world, might experience a very different thing when lions interact with them. Because the VR that we create has to either match the real world or give us an experience that we will sure won't change our experience in the real world. Okay, so now I go back to what I parked before, which is I said, for the most part, there's something safe about VR, which is that you can do this. So I convinced you right now that, hopefully, that even though it's not kind of mimicking the real world, there's something about VR that still changes our brain. But I would say that we still have enough mechanisms to protect ourselves because our brain knows it's not real. Fast forward to how we can change that. There are experiences in life right now that actually fool the brain entirely into thinking they're real. So there are moments where you put VR goggles that are so good that even your brain is unable to tell that this is not reality. One of those experiences is dreams. And what's interesting, and I wanted to end with that, is that neuroscientists in the last 10 years have started playing with the ultimate VR, the ultimate metaverse. They want it in a way, if I were a business person sitting in the room right now, and someone offered me whether to invest in a better VR company or in a better kind of company that creates, I would say, forget that. Invest in the ideas of dreams because they are the future. And the idea here is that each and every one of us, every night, for about 3 hours out of 7 hours sleep, let's say 2 hours out of 7 hours sleep, gets the ultimate virtual reality experience, one where the dragon actually seems real, where the dinosaur is real, and then you cannot do this. You think it's reality. Now, up to the last couple of years, these experiences were kind of internal, intrinsic. They came to us. We were just subjected to them. We went to sleep, and suddenly grandma was in the dream. Suddenly, dinosaurs are doing, we couldn't control that. We somehow had control over what did we do in the day before and hope that these would be in our dreams, but we didn't really control them. For the first time in history, scientists are now able to give you the dreams you want. Now, it's really crude. We can't really control if that dinosaur is blue or green or how it looks, but we can actually ensure that you're going to dream something that you desire before. We can say you want to go to sleep, and we're going to help you get this particular dream. This means that the metaverse of the future would be that. You actually go to sleep, and you put a DVD, Sleep by Spielberg, and you get to live on Mars for a day on your dreams. You go on a date, you come back from a date, and instead of just saying, okay, it was a really lovely date, like now let's all go to sleep separately, you actually say, and by the way, we continue the date on the dream, right? Like you're gonna go to this place, I'm gonna meet you in my dream in this place, I'm gonna have dinner together in this dream, and in the morning we can share what was the experience for us. What neuroscientists are doing right now is they're playing with the idea of giving you a visual of a dream that actually will be as real as it gets. And the nice thing about it, and I'm going to quote Ford, even though I'm not a fan of the guy, because he took us, I think, backwards when he talks about dreams, is that dreams are real while they last. Can we say more about life? For the 2 hours out of 7 when you're dreaming, it feels like you're in a different world. And now that we're beginning to be able to access the dreams and navigate them, you can actually ask for whatever experience you want as a way to train your brain. You can say, I'm going to sleep right now. Tomorrow I have a really important board meeting. I don't know what I'm going to do. Can you give me the entire board meeting in my sleep and I'm going to play a game? One of the theories about dream is that dreams are just a tool for that. They're a tool for our brain to simulate futures so we can actually experience this decision-making on these futures. And then when we wake up, we might forget the entire dream, but we still have the residue of the feelings we had in the dream, and we can operate on those. We're going to basically rehearse some experiences. Now that neuroscientists are beginning to play with the idea of controlling dreams and navigating them and giving you narratives that we want, you can essentially ask what you want to experience, and for at least 2 hours out of 24, this will be part of your reality. So I gave you 3 points. I'm going to end with those by showing you one little clip. Point 1 is that when we talk about metaverse, up to now we mostly focused on visual, auditory, sometimes a little tactile or a little sensory, but mostly kind of 2 senses play with it. And our brain automatically knows that it's not reality when we give those kind of limited versions, that if the metaverse wants to be real, it needs to really figure out what is the experience in full and start replacing each and every component perfectly and knowing what the components are and activating the brains, so making you remember the memory, making you feel the memory, making you taste the memory, making you all of that. Step 2 is even in the limited version we have right now, our brain is remarkable in how fast it is taking those changes, internalizing them and integrating them and changing accordingly. So we can use metaverse in a very crude way, but still change a lot of a person's experiences. And in that sense, the metaverse is a risk or a threat or opportunity to take things that were there for a lot of time and say, how can we use them to change something? And the third and most important point is that if I were a businessman sitting in the room right now and I would ask myself, what's the future isn't in a better VR goggle or a little nicer phone experiences. It's in actually getting to the place where the brain itself generates an emergence experience that feels like reality and playing there. Dreams are the easiest one because they happen automatically, but we can actually expand on that and use it even in the real world by changing entirely the world. I want to end by showing a video clip that to me is the essence of what the metaverse could be. It's a clip of a person watching a VR in a shopping mall, VR experience where he kind of plays, so he runs a little kind of theme park, goes up and down in a treadmill, but then something happens that I think changes everything for him. Let's see. He's being pushed by his friend. I think we can cut the clip. This isn't a nice friend who's doing it to his friend, but the point I'm trying to illustrate, and I think with that we can all leave, is that even very small basic experiences, like a push while you see yourself riding a little kind of ride in a theme park, could be enough for our brain to say, this is the real world right now, scary, change everything. So what neuroscience is offering us is a way to understand what the changes are and how we can harness them to make a better world for ourselves. And I think that you're in the situation right now where you are able to influence that future. And I think that the call, if you want, from my talk is to start thinking about experiences as like a breakdown of many, many options and ask yourself, which one do I want to replace? Which one do I want to enhance? Which ones are critical for my existence that I want to make sure that they don't get changed by any outside entity? And if you ever want to change them, what's the right place in life that you want to interject? Awake, asleep, gaming, business, and so on. Thank you.
תודה רבה. Do you think after listening to Moran, our brains are built for the metaverse? Dreams of the future. Moran and I have written a few articles, and we're going to do an art book after I finish my current book, so probably a year and a half or so from now, called Post-Virtual. And the notion of the post-virtual world, our definition of it is after the point where you cannot tell the difference between in real life and virtual worlds, we will be in the post-virtual world. The reason is simple. No one will ask the stupid question like, should we meet in a real cafe or an online cafe? That distinction will no longer make any sense. One of the quips we make is, you cannot have your chocolate cake and eat it too. You cannot have your chocolate cake and eat it too. We are descendants of all the monkeys who did the right Excel files. It reminds me of a brilliant little article by a phenomenal, brilliant philosopher, Karl Popper, an epistemologist, but also a social commentator. And he said, all life is problem solving. And he didn't just mean we go through life solving problems. We have to until we fail and then we die, and by definition, all life is problem solving. He literally meant DNA is an instantiation of past problems solved. The issue, of course, is the problems change.